Quite your sets.
Aita,
Yula.
hola.
Kumnyama kaphela ukukhanya kwakela
Question: where shall faithfulness be found? Some think that they've heard its sound, intermingled with the Friday noon clanking of keys and chains against the doors of Muslim-owned stores. And others say it is so high that only the best ZCC dancers can reach it. Many believe that it is too expensive, and only the most extravagant prosperity gospel pimps can afford to preach it. Many more claim to have finally found faithfulness firmly fixed in between the pages of their political parties' manifestos. But I've come to learn that faithfulness is not proportional to one's level of skin pigmentation, and that trustworthiness refuses to be defined along the line between the colonizer and the native, because both have had the shores of their hearts invaded by an intruder seething with hatred, determined to inflict more harm than Dutch sailors looking for dominion. Satan has settled in the hearts of all humanity, cultivated all kinds of sins in the arable soil of our souls, and discovered gold mines of iniquities. But faithfulness bows down to neither the democratically elected president nor the dictator, because both sit on borrowed thrones and wield makeshift scepters. Their decrees are cast in hollow stones, and their most loyal supporters soon become their worst detractors. Faithfulness chooses neither the side of the illegal foreigner nor the xenophobic. Instead, it declares that both are strangers to this world, waiting in the generational queue towards the only border that truly matters. Let us be warned and beware. Faithfulness is not impressed with the external labels that we wear: Guess, Gucci, Calvin Klein or Armani, Calvinist or Arminian, creationist or Darwinian, reformer or papist. And faithfulness is neither feminist nor sexist, so it does not judge the pregnant teenager more harshly than her boyfriend. They are both guilty of skipping school even though she missed more periods than she had intended. There is no one on earth in whom perfect faithfulness can be found. But oh, how faithful is the one who has promised us a better land to grab. A city with foundations whose designer and builder is God, a city where our spirits will be so high there will be no business for nyaupe dealers, a city where our sisters will be just as grand as our mothers' mothers because no man will ever use, abuse or bruise them, a city where immunodeficiency will be an oxymoron like medical aid for glorified bodies, a city where children will have no children to raise. Instead, they will be pregnant with gratitude and give birth to praise. Faithful is the one who has promised us a better land to grab, a city with foundations whose designer and builder is God.
Yo, welcome back to another episode of Kwane's Poetic License. First things off, guys, we have a home. We finally have a home in Hatfield, Poetic, Africa. So every one of my Joburg and Victoria poets, this is where, I can finally say I have a special guest in the building. And that building is in Hatfield, in Arcadia Street, between Arcadia and Festival at Poetic, Africa. It's an art space. You guys can come in for all your art needs. So now that we've got that out of the way, we're back with another episode. Today I have a special guest in the building. Man Mandla, how are you, bro? How are you, bro?
Good, what's up, man?
I'm good, man.
Yeah. Nice building, by the way.
Yeah, thank you, man.
Beautiful.
I'm still admiring it myself.
It's a dope setup, man.
Thanks, bro. Thank you for joining me on this podcast,
Sure.
and for sharing your heart with us.
Yeah.
For sharing your heart and your whole writing process, because that's a hard thing to do.
It is,
to invite people into your writing space.
Yeah.
So no, I'm glad you did, man. For my viewers who might not know who Mandla is, do you mind doing like a young intro just to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so Mandla is a cat from the East Rand,
Yeah.
Vosloorus, now Kempton Park, and part of a band called Redeeming Syllables. So it's where we try to merge poetry with jazz and all other nice music. Mandla is a husband, he's a father, got 2 kids. And
Above all, he's a poet, guys. So, bro, I know you chose a poem.
yeah.
Do you mind telling me why you chose this particular poem and like the process when you were writing it? What message were you trying to relay?
I think I chose it because it's one of the easiest poems for me to explain.
Oh, okay.
So when I looked at the kind of questioning that I was gonna get here, so I thought, okay, this one is sort of easier to explain than the other pieces because sometimes when we write, a lot of the stuff is going on in our heads, and it's difficult to now explain to someone what was going on in your head when you wrote this thing. But to you, it makes sense as the poet. To the people, maybe you don't really want them to understand, but you want them to feel it, right? So this one is more about me wanting you to understand what I have to say.
Oh, you really want us to get in there?
Yeah. So a lot of my other pieces, it's sort of, I want to leave you with the feeling, not necessarily an understanding. You might understand, you might not, but I want to leave you with the feeling. So that's why I chose this one because it's easier to dissect. Yeah.
Wow, for those feelings, we need to go to one of your shows then if you want to get the feelings behind the poem. All right, cool. Let's just jump into it. I know this piece is from a Redeeming Syllables track, right?
Yeah.
Faithfulness.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay, cool. So the name of the piece, guys, is Faithfulness, which you guys just saw. It's beautiful. It got most of us here off guard. It caught us off guard. So, like the structure of the show goes, because it's seemingly long, we'll just go stanza, and then where we have lines, we'll just go line by line. So you start by saying, you open the poem by saying, it's actually a question.
Yeah.
You're saying, where shall faithfulness be found?
For sure. Yeah.
Like, your basis of this whole poem is like the question of where faithfulness be found. What are you trying to convey with that, especially the first line? Yeah.
So I think the message of the poem is really summed up in the line towards the end where I say, there is no one on earth in whom perfect faithfulness can be found.
Okay.
Right. So that's the point of the poem. But I'm asking the question to try and get people to think about it for themselves. Right. But then in the end, I provide the answer that the only faithful one really is God. The only person we can expect perfect faithfulness from. Human beings try, but we fail. Even when we have good intentions, we don't have the strength to do what we promise to do. So the point is, there's no one in whom perfect faithfulness can be found.
Wow, okay, cool. And then you go on to give like a perfect or like examples as to lead people to what they've placed their faithfulness in, if I'm not mistaken. You go something that they've had its sound intermingled with the Friday noon clicking of keys and chains against the doors of Muslim owned stores.
Yeah.
So is this an allusion to like the religion of Islam?
Yeah, I mean, I think Islam or people who practice Islam are often seen as more radical in their faith than Christians. A lot of Christians, you won't know that somebody is a Christian until you speak to them. Yeah. But Islam, you can see by the kind of clothes they wear. These are people who are willing to forgo income at a certain time of the week.
Yeah.
They lock their shops to go pray. So a lot of people look at that and think, wow,
that's what faithfulness is like.
These guys are faithful.
Yeah.
So that's the reference there.
And then you go on to say, I think one of my other favorite lines, it says, others say it is so high that only the best ZCC can afford to reach it.
Again, I mean, funny story about this line. So I did this piece at another church somewhere.
Yeah.
It was like a youth event or something. And then just before I went on stage, a guy wearing a ZCC badge walked in and sat down there. Now I'm thinking, do I do this piece or not? Do I skip this line? But anyway, I didn't. So again, with ZCC, I think different from most other Christians, these are people whose religion is expressed outwardly in the type of clothes they wear, the badge, and obviously they've got that popular dance style
where they jump.
yeah.
That's dope. That's a dope metaphor, bro. And then one that I think, this next line, I think it's more, especially for our time, is here when you say, many believe that it is too expensive and only the most extravagant prosperity gospel pimps can afford to preach it.
Yeah.
Let's go back to these prosperity gospel pimps. Why would you, what are you talking about here?
I mean, there's no easier way to put it. I think there's a lot of people. I mean, not to be critical as if I'm perfect or anything, but there's a lot of people masquerading as men of God. We see a lot of things happening in churches these days, people eating grass and snakes and whatever. And so there's this idea that, if your pastor doesn't drive the most expensive car, then he's not faithfully serving God. So the most faithful servants are seen by their extravagant lifestyles. You understand? So that's what that line is communicating there.
Wow, yeah, that's why I said it's perfect for our time, especially for Pretoria, where there's a lot of these these gospel preachers. And then you continue to say, many more claim to have finally found faithfulness firmly fixed in between pages of their political parties. Manifestos. Yeah. Is this relevant to us in South Africans? Because I know Republicans and Democrats, Americans, they will claim, like especially Republicans, they claim that they are for God, but I haven't seen it really in. Yeah, so
then I'm not speaking in terms of religious faithfulness. So I'm talking about how people see a savior in a political leader. You understand? Okay. We look at political leaders and think, okay, now this is the one who's gonna take us out of the mess that we are in. You understand?
So that's where we place our
hope. Look at their policies, their manifestos. We think, I'm voting for this party because I'm placing all my hope in what these guys have mapped out.
Okay, no, that's shines
for us,
Okay,
so it's all encompassing. It's not just about religious faithfulness.
Oh, so it's just faithfulness as a person.
Yeah, sure.
Oh wow, that's just beautiful, bro. And then this is when now you start, drawing the construct, and you say, I've come to learn that faithfulness is not proportional to one's level or skin pigmentation, and that trustworthiness refuses to be defined along the line between the colonizer and the native. I don't know what I was watching yesterday, and then I saw someone was explaining the same thing, that just because I'm black doesn't mean I forgo maybe like some of the sins. Just because my skin doesn't mean just because I'm black doesn't mean I don't sin as much as the next person.
For sure.
Is this what then you're alluding to yourself?
Yeah, so what I'm trying to say there is that at the end of the day, we have the history that we have as South Africa, where we're coming from a past of oppression that was based on racial lines.
Yeah.
Okay, so that then makes it very easy for someone to turn around and say, white is evil. Yes. Right. Yes. I've had those feelings myself. Right. I struggle with those thoughts myself. But if you look back at the past 25 years since we've had democracy or freedom, whatever you want to call it, really, even the black political leaders have shown themselves to be not the saviors that we expected them to be.
That we wanted them to be.
I mean, I just saw there's this picture trending now of a kid in a blue school jersey who had just had to cross a river to get to school. I mean,
that's painful.
25 years after apartheid, we still have situations like that. Kids are drowning in pit toilets in schools, and then so it just shows that some people are better than others in some ways, but at the end of the day, no one is perfect. Everyone is going to fail you at some point.
It's beautiful, bro. That hurts, though. That's
it does, but it's reality.
Yeah, it is reality. And then you go on to say, Satan has settled in their hearts, meaning like both the native and the Western, cultivated all kinds of sins in the arable soul of our souls and discovered gold mines.
Yeah.
So do you think that's where Satan strives?
So those lines basically I'm now alluding to the history of South Africa in the sense of, so when I say Satan has settled, so the Boers were known as the settlers. These are people who came from Europe to come and settle in South Africa, and then during the wars our land was dispossessed, and they chose for themselves the most arable parts of the land where they could farm and grow crops and thrive. So when I say he has cultivated all kinds of sins in the arable soil of our souls, it's the reference to the fact that people came and chose for themselves the most arable parts of the land to cultivate
for themselves.
And then discovered gold mines of iniquity. Again, in a reference to the history that people came and discovered gold, and they thrived from the gold that they discovered in our land. So in the same way, I think Satan kind of thrives in the sin that he doesn't put sin in us, but he exploits it. The same way our land and minerals were exploited. So it's like a parallelism on that history.